Officials have fenced off the area where the turtles are to help protect them. Females will lay over 100 eggs in the holes they dig, and in about a month and a half, at night, those eggs will hatch and the babies will scamper to the sea. One wildlife photographer says this is one of the biggest nesting colonies in the world, and the conservationists feel lucky to have it in India, on the northwestern coast of the Bay of Bengal. With a facts-first, nonpartisan approach to news and features, this is The World from A to Z. I'm Carl Azus, thankful to be your host, thankful to have you watching. American health officials are working to track and stop a measles outbreak that's infected dozens of people in Texas and New Mexico. When we produced this show, the total number of cases was approaching 100, mostly in Texas. Authorities believe it started in late January. Measles is a highly contagious virus. It can be spread by coughing, sneezing, even talking. It primarily affects children like chickenpox. Common measles symptoms include fever, runny nose, sore throat, and distinct red blotches that can appear from the face down to the feet. The vast majority of people who get the disease survive it. Health officials estimate the survival rate is between 99.7% and 99.9%. However, a significant percentage, as high as 25% with measles, are hospitalized. It's too early to know how this outbreak will compare to others. There are typically anywhere from a few dozen to a few hundred measles cases annually in the U.S. Before 1963, when a measles vaccine was developed, the country saw several million cases yearly. That's why health officials credit the vaccine with nearly eliminating the virus in America, though at least 5 of the cases in the current Texas outbreak were among people who'd been vaccinated. More confirmed cases are expected in the days ahead, and officials have opened up new testing centers to keep track of the outbreak. Aside from the vaccine, experts say prevention tips are similar to those for the flu. Regularly washing hands, keeping a good diet, avoiding contact with people who are sick, covering coughs and sneezes, and staying home if you're sick.
Word of knowledge. Which of these things was invented first? Debit card, compact disc, Rubik's Cube, space shuttle. Established by a pilot program in the late 1960s, before any of these other options was available, was a debit card.
To debit or credit? That's the question.
I think it just depends on your relationship with money and your budget, whether or not you're in debt.
A debit card can come in handy if you prefer to pay with cash or don't want to overspend, such as when you want to avoid interest charges, when you need cash from an ATM, and a big one, when you're trying to stay out of debt, as a debit card will only let you spend money you already have.
It's like the cash stuffing method, where if you only put cash in envelopes and you're only allowed to spend that cash, that's the essential equivalent of using a debit card.
Credit cards, on the other hand, are more flexible, allowing you to borrow money to make purchases. They're also useful for earning rewards and points, building your credit score, shopping online with fraud protections debit cards may not have, and booking hotels or rental cars, which may require security deposits.
If you have a credit card, that hold only goes on your line of credit. If you're using a debit card, that means you have to already have that deposit amount.
Who lived longer? Was it George Washington or was it the United States of America? It was God.
Currency in the United States, but after the Civil War broke,
I missed it.
Spending habits and what you want out of each card.
On this date in world history. Until 1862, gold and silver coins were the only currency in the United States. But after the Civil War broke out in 1861, the Union soon saw a shortage of these coins, so the Legal Tender Act, passed on February 25th, 1862, authorized paper currency, then called greenbacks. It was a federal and financial change for the country. On this date in 1951, the first Pan American Games kicked off in Argentina. The event is essentially the Olympics for all the nations in North and South America. More than 2,500 athletes competed in the first Pan Am Games. Today, they involve more than 6,000 competitors from dozens of countries. On this date in 1986, a major change came for the Philippines during large-scale protests known as the People Power Revolution or February Revolution. President Ferdinand Marcos, a dictator who'd ruled the nation for 20 years, resigned, and the nonviolent revolution led to the return of democracy to the Philippines and the election of its first female president.
Where in the world? This is a European country that has no official date of independence. It has overseas territories in the Caribbean, Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. Its government type is a parliamentary constitutional monarchy, though that monarchy is mostly ceremonial. This is the United Kingdom, or Britain, a nation of more than 68 million people.
The infamous Tower of London, once a prison for enemies of the crown, now a historic landmark and home. Ravens have lived at the tower for centuries, and that's by design. It's believed King Charles II was the first to insist that the ravens living in the tower be protected because of a superstition. It foretold that if less than 6 ravens lived in the tower, it would come crashing down and the kingdom would fall with it. Tower guards, called yeoman warders, have been responsible for keeping the birds content with living at the tower for centuries. It's a task that's still taken very seriously today. In the 1960s, a Raven Master was appointed to lead the yeomen. Michael Chandler is the 6th Raven Master ever. When Chandler initially joined the Tower Guard, he had no interest in becoming a Raven Master. But the sleek black birds won him over.
I love the ravens. I love working with them. I love everything about them.
Now, Chandler happily cares for the ravens, feeding them a mixture of chicken and mouse, cleaning their cages. At night, he beds them down in cages to keep them safe, but otherwise, the birds fly free.
They're let out at first light in the morning. They'll do their stuff. They just go. We don't monitor. We monitor them, but we don't control them in any way.
The tower is currently home to 7 ravens, one more than the legend calls for. Jubilee, Harris, Poppy, Georgie, Edgar, Branwen, and the most recent arrival, Rex, each with their own unique personalities.
Ravens are similar to us in many senses, but more so that they're individuals, they're characters. Just like us, some don't get on with others, others are more introvert, others are more mischievous. And for me, that's part of the draw to the job.
Today, few people actually believe that ravens are needed for England to endure, but tradition is a powerful fixture of culture, especially in a historic place like the Tower of London. So Chandler and his team are doing their best to keep this tradition, odd as it may seem, alive.
The European nation of Montenegro is first on today's World of Viewers. We warmly welcome Mrs. Beningo's class there at QSI International School, Montenegro. It's in the nation's capital, Podgorica. Stateside in Georgia, we see the Rams of Arabia Mountain High School. Hello to Dr. Ferguson's class watching from Lithonia in the Peach State. And in the Centennial State of Colorado, the Cougars are on the prowl at Creighton Middle School. Great to see Mr. Tomar's or Tomar's class in Lakewood. Before we dip out, we're going to dip into an event in France that became a crowning achievement, or should we say achievement, because more than 5,000 people turned out recently to see if Cellar Masters could set a record for the world's largest cheese fondue. The previous high mark for this, yes, someone did it before, was set in Switzerland, but for the new record, makers stirred up more than 70 cubic feet of queso weighing more than 4,800 pounds. There must be fro magic in the air when it comes to fro mastering the fondues and don'ts of all the elementals of cheddar people will treasure. It's a stirring, fateful fate, a party of Havarti when you bring together a gorgonzolata, folks, to camembert an old record and give rote foretaste of all the good things to come. Plus, it shows you know jack about good cheese. I'm Carl Azus, cutting puns on the world from A to Z, and we hope to see you again Wednesday. You mean the world to me.